Welcome back to Talk Property to Me. My name is Brad East.
And I'm Aaron Downie.
Today we're going to be running through, some common things to avoid, with valuations. So how lenders value a property, how you should be valuing a property, and I guess how to maximize your returns. So I guess to start with, what we're going to be talking about is obviously an introduction into property valuations, some elements that influence what values, or I guess the property value, some pitfalls in property valuations, and some, I guess, things that I see shortfalls, especially with off the plan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Bit of shortfalls in valuations there. Some of the methodologies in the property appraisal, so comparative market analysis and some fun words there. And then basically, just an overall rundown on valuations. So I guess I'll start with what are the different types of valuations that a bank will do, because that's obviously more my domain.
Mm-hmm.
So the different types that a bank will use is AVM, so automated value. That basically is just a computer model, or I think it's AI even.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what it does, it works out what recent comparative sales were in that area, and compares, I guess, your land size, bedrooms, everything, and then it spits out a value of what it thinks your property would be. Now, a lot of lenders have their own inbuilt AVM model, most, I guess, notably CBA.
Love a CBA val.
It's very generous. They're internal, they call it an internal val.
Yeah.
So their AVM or AI modeled, it's very generous.
Yeah.
It usually comes in a lot higher than most others, which is great if you need to pull equity for an investment property purchase or something like that.
And it's based on settlement data, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
So they're obviously the biggest bank in Australia. They've got a lot of data.
Yeah.
So they are, I guess, they've got more confidence that if they lent out that amount of money, that property would actually sell for that amount.
Yeah.
Some of the other AVMs are extremely conservative. Downfalls of an AVM, obviously, is if you've done some renovations, you've done something that it's not going to pick up, then it's useless. Same with the next type, which is a desktop. The only difference is it's not a computer doing it or an AI doing it. It's an actual, I'll use the word loosely, valuer, professional, sitting there and manually selecting the comparatives, and then they're putting in their input as to what they think it's worth. Again, that varies from valuer to valuer.
Yeah.
Like literally
based on what experiences that they've had in that location or
experience, bias,
type.
Everything that comes into a human doing it, all those arrogance and whole list of things, behaviors that are not desirable. Next one up from that is a curbside. So the valuer actually gets in their car and sits outside the house. I don't see them as often as
Interesting.
I used to. They will literally just take a photo of the front of the house and keep going. Short form is the next one up. So they go in the house, they'll go through, take photos, and do what the desktop, compare it to recent sales and property size. That's probably the most common, is a short form valuation, and then there's a full val.
Yeah.
Full valuation would be if there's multiple dwellings or there was some complex, requirements to the valuation. Very rare to have that.
And you can send, for a full val, you can actually send them out to do that before trying to purchase a property, but also it might happen the case that you actually...
At your own cost, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you really wanted to send a valuer out to do any of these things sort of before you were to purchase something, you are able to do so, but it would be at your cost.
Yeah, of course.
Most lenders will allow you to get one or two freebies as part of your purchasing process. So I guess we'll run through valuation. It's basically what the lender or what you are determining the value of a property is.
Yeah, of course.
That doesn't always match to purchase price.
Yeah.
So we have to be clear with that. So it's not like a general item where it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Lenders acknowledge that people become emotional and attached to a purchase, and they overspend.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So that's why they've got these third-party companies, valuers, that will then put their value on it
Yeah.
and determine whether they're overspending or not.
And I think that's the thing, and we've touched on this with quantitative and qualitative side of things. Subjective value is, like you said, what somebody's willing to pay, and ultimately that's what market value is.
Yeah.
Which, when two parties are willing to meet on an agreed price. And I think maybe that's why the ComVal system is so generous, because of all of the data that it actually has internally, it's also considering what's happening in the economy or what's happening in that location to come for the next couple of decades as well. But it's also, in my personal opinion as well, like, what's the opportunity cost? Because regardless of your valuation, if you value a property, say, at $1 million, if someone has to move to that area to start a new job or to start school or whatever, we've spoken about this before, what's you might value it $1 million, but it might cost an extra $50,000 to purchase that asset. No one else can justify that price, but maybe that $50,000 extra was worth it at the time for that person to purchase.
Oh, for sure. If it meets your needs.
If it meets your needs, I don't care who the valuer is.
No.
They can't try and justify that.
In the current market, like, I don't see many, if any, shortfalls. So that's when, let's say you purchase at the $1 million, valuer comes out and says it's worth $950.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I see that in the current market.
Yeah.
When I started doing this, when it was a declining market, 10 years ago, it happened a lot.
Yeah.
Because valuers get a bit of a God complex sometimes, and they try and control the market because the media is telling them it's dropping.
Yeah.
Then they think they need to then put a lower price on it because the market's dropping.
Yeah.
When someone's literally just spent $950 for it, it's worth $950 in my opinion.
That's market value.
That's what it's worth. That's what that person was willing to pay. But then they go, no, it's worth $920 because the market's dropping.
Yeah.
Well, no, if the market wasn't dropping, they probably would have spent $1 million on it.
And then somebody else has got to come up with 30,000 cash.
Well, that's right. If the valuation comes in short versus the purchase price, then you have to spot the difference in cash.
Yeah.
Because of your loan to value ratios are thrown out.
Or get a different valuer.
Yeah, and that's hard in itself.
Yeah.
It's usually change lenders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think in 10 years, I think I've maybe had one successful, ordering a new new valuation. Most of the time, the lender would have said, that's it.
Yeah.
We're sticking with what the valuer said.
Yeah.
I've had ones that the variation has been more than 35% between three valuers. It's mental. And that
quite a difference.
And that's just literally due to personal,
Yeah.
I guess what they think of the property. And that's a good little segue into the next part. What are the key elements influencing the property valuation? This is obviously from a valuer perspective, but some of the things they look at is obviously we've talked about it. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Is the comparative sales.
Yeah,
they look at comparative sales, but then when they look at those comparative sales, they then rank your property versus that. So they might say, all right, you're selling a 5-bedroom house in Lake Macquarie. I don't know. Let's say Caves Beach, whatever it's going to be. They will then look over, generally between a 3, 6, 12-month period.
Yeah.
What has sold in that area that is closely related to that. So 5-bedroom, whatever. Then they will link it back and go, all right, what's the street appeal look like?
Yeah.
So what's the house look like from the street?
Yeah.
And then they rank it superior or inferior.
Yeah.
There's no in between. And that comes down to literally that valuer's personal opinion.
And that's the thing, like, essentially what a qualified valuer is doing is a comparable market analysis, which is what real estate agents do, which is what an individual can do. And I think the difference is with the valuer and the actual real estate agent, why real estate agents are more accurate is because, you've got all of this data. You got a 4 or 5-bedroom house. You got 2 bathrooms. It's waterfront, faces south. The street appeals this, all of these considerations. But the real estate actually knows what's happening in the market on that day.
Yep.
Because sales data, like we said, some sales can take 6 months to process and update an actual valuation system. Whereas real estate agents They know what's happening during winter, during spring, on the weekend, what auctions people are turning up to, how many people are registering to bid.
How much discounts going on.
Exactly. There's a lot more live information that isn't then translated into data which can be tracked.
Yeah. So, yeah, obviously you're very reliant on the information that the valuer is looking at, more so for a refinance.
Yeah.
When it's a purchase, as I said, very rarely, like literally I'd say less than 1% are getting a shortfall.
Yeah.
The valuers don't really want to put their name on it.
Yeah.
Because you better believe there's some bitching and screaming coming on the
100%.
back of that from everyone.
Yeah.
So most of the time, 9 times out of 10, well, more than that, 9.99, they're just going to pick the contractor sale price.
100%.
No one wants to put their name on it. There's some factors that then start to creep into them making that decision. One of them is interstate buyers. So when we order a valuation, there's a tick box that we have to tick that says, do they live in a different state to they're purchasing in? So that little tick box was designed to target the seminar buyers. We're selling 200 in an apartment block, blah, blah, blah. So
interesting.
That is a tick box that we have to tick as when we're ordering it. Do they live in a different state to the purchase? If you tick that, it's always going to short form.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're not going to do a contractor sale price because we do know that, some of those, I guess, I wouldn't even call them a buyer's agent, buyer's advocate, I think is the correct term for someone that spruiks for a developer. But they're putting 5%, usually about 5% commission onto the purchase price. So valuers are aware of that, and that does flag to them. As I said, they're mostly for off the plan sort of brand new purchases.
Yeah.
And on that is probably the common pitfall, which is the next part, is shortfalls is off the plan. That's probably the number one time I see a shortfall is when it's an off the plan purchase.
Yeah, shortfalls for vals, definitely. I think actual pitfalls within the market, there's so many of them, and probably the two most common is relying on real estate agents' guide prices.
Oh, for sure.
And then
the person selling
it, prices.
The person selling it telling you what it's worth.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things, like the actual valuation of a property. Go and value it yourself, and if you can't value it yourself and come up with a realistic figure that's not in line with the median, because the median is another massive problem.
And also, overvaluing yourself based on, it says here, superficial factors or features. That is a thing too. You might go, there's some pretty lights in the garden.
Yeah.
That doesn't add much.
Doesn't add much. It's what, again, it's whatever you see value in.
It can create, I guess, an emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Is where I'm getting at with that. So that's, I guess being told that it's worth more than it's worth.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great topic for another episode, but that, just leads into negotiation, and the actual guide prices can work both ways, and they're both just an anchoring technique. Guide prices can be under 10%, which is, legally the real estate agents are allowed to do that.
Yep.
And they use that to then build momentum and gain more interest from people. But then they can also anchor you at the top end. So as an example, if it's $1 million property and it gets listed for 1.2 million, or you get told it's 1.2 million, if you then go and buy it for 1.1 million, you think you've got a bargain.
Yeah.
But you've actually been anchored at 1.2 when realistic the property may have only been worth 1.1.
Now, we did talk about this before we started recording, which was some of the tools. And, I mentioned that there's some tools that will give you an estimate of what the property's worth.
Mm-hmm.
How accurate are they? And would you rely on them? Example,
I get so many.
Domain will punch out a figure. All these things, they're never right, in my opinion.
And the most common ones, people go, domainrealestate.com or CoreLogic, this is what they value it at. Their value is also within a range of 800,000 to 1.2 million.
Correct.
So a $400,000 range, how is that an accurate valuation?
And then most of the time it will just pick a figure in the middle somewhere and go probability high.
And again, that's based on the median. So it's not taking into consideration so many different aspects. I think that will change in the future. And I spoke to a guy at PropTrack, who are the data supplier for realestate.com.au. And they're actually building an AI model that can read certain features or identify certain features in the listing photos.
Yeah.
So instead of relying on your high level, 3-bedroom house, 500 square meter block in this suburb, it's going to look at the actual pictures. What's the sort of light like? What are the windows like? What's the flooring like? All of these features that do make a difference. So I think actual valuation models will become more sophisticated.
Oh, 100%. I'm looking forward to it, actually. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
We were playing around with some AI earlier today, and the quality is just getting better by the month.
Yeah.
And I think values going forward, let's fast forward maybe 5 years, there's going to be a lot less BS in values because it's just going to be data.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that the data is becoming a lot more advanced, that the median will start to be known that it's not just a median for a suburb.
Yeah.
It's for a very particular property type. And there's so many different considerations.
What's we really struggled. We built out at Catherine Hill Bay and sold recently. What we really struggled when we were doing our valuations was there was nothing in that area like ours.
Yeah.
We were on near 2,000 square meters when the average out there is about 550.
Yeah.
So there was nothing like it.
And that's where it's like one of those situations you try and build in different approaches. So, you can rely on bank vals, or you can rely on an actual valuer doing theirs. You can do a comparable market analysis. You can do a cost per square meter, cost to actually build, or cost per square meter for what similar properties have sold for of that quality. And you can try and combine all of those to come up with an accurate figure. But it is when you've got very little information at hand.
We literally had to just throw it on the market at a certain price and then see what happened.
Yeah.
Literally, we threw it up at a certain price and not much inquiry, drop it a little bit, not much inquiry, drop it, heaps. And you're like, well, there's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
There is literally no other way to do it.
Yeah.
Some will do the other way, aim low, and then build it up the other way.
I think that was a better way, starting high, because
you just don't know.
You don't know. But also it's like people then think they've got a discount.
Correct.
Instead of someone going, because it was around 2 mil, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we listed at 2.2.
Yeah.
So then it sold for 1.9. I actually wanted around 1.8.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it would be worth, around that 1.8 mark.
Yeah.
But we thought, stuff it, let's aim high.
Yeah.
I think we listed at 2.2 to 2.3 or something like that.
Yeah.
We didn't get a great deal.
Yeah.
But then as we started to list it, like lower it and lower it and lower it, that buyer mentality or that buyer psychology pops in of, these guys must be in a hurry to sell.
Yeah.
And it's on discount now. It was listed at 2.3.
Yeah.
Now it's up for 1.9.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're jumping at it.
Yeah.
And if I listed it at 1.8,
their expectations would have been 1.8.
I would have bought it. I would have sold it at 1.8.
Yeah.
Because they go, why did you increase it? You had it originally listed at 1.8.
Yeah. And that's the thing for that particular product. That's why the anchoring technique working both ways, you have to consider that, because in that market, you don't have 30 people lining up for a $2 million property. So you're not going to get that momentum from multiple offers. Yeah. There's no point trying to anchor somebody low and then getting to people to outbid each other.
So the next one I wanted to talk about was probably a little bit controversial, but off market. I see that word thrown around so much at the moment. You've got all these off market opportunities. My personal opinion, you can argue this one, is that in the current market, especially in Newcastle, I'm not talking about these hot markets in Perth and Brisbane and where things are going mental, but in Newcastle, why would you want an off market property? If let's use this as an example. most people that are going for auctions at the moment in Newcastle, they're passing it at auction. That's softening the shit out of the vendors. So then their expectations have dropped a couple of $100,000, and then they're selling usually post-auction at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm seeing. Why would you want to buy it before they've gone through that process, which usually takes about 3 months, and then they realise that their property's not worth what they originally thought it was?
You're right. It depends on the market. Mostly, buyers agents exist in these competitive markets: Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and then buyers agents, investment properties elsewhere. But it depends on the market, and I know, like the eastern suburbs of Sydney, for example, it's such a competitive market. You've always got that consistent demand, and you've typically got buyer's agent competing against buyer's agent. So it's almost, you don't buy property in the east without a buyer's agent. And because of those relationships, you know that there's buyers in the market with that buyer's agent, so you can sell off market. In terms of Newcastle, with this market, you're right. It depends on what's happening with sales and auction clearance rates. But typically, with the sort of rapid growth of the buyer's agent industry, off markets is typically used just as a sales technique. Everybody in Australia can get access to off market property if they put the effort into doing it.
Just got to reach out to real estate
agents. If you actually think about it from a vendor and an agent's perspective, and I'm in the Newcastle market at the moment, there's 30 people sub 1 mil turning up to open homes. So if there's 30 people turning up to open homes, how can the real estate agent take every single person seriously and keep in contact with them to update them individually with a new property? Because out of those 30 people, you've probably got 2 or 3 that are actually going to buy the property or make offers on the property. So the reason why off-market properties have become so prevalent at the moment in a sales tactic for buyer's agent is the real estate agent takes the buyer's agent seriously, because they say, hey, listen, I've got a buyer. You're calling them constantly, and you've already justified what price you're actually going to pay. So instead of time wasting buyers out there in the market, agents are likely to deal with buyers agents more so because they know that they're dealing with the buyer and they don't have to.
Look, it's great for a quick sale.
Yeah.
As a vendor especially.
Yeah.
But I would argue it's only effective for you as a buyer in a hot market.
I think in terms of local, like, hot markets, you're right. Like, the real estate agent, they have to act in the best interest of their vendor, which is ultimately to get the highest price. So why would you sell off market if you're trying to achieve the highest price? Because that's going to happen on the market unless you sell for a high price off market.
Correct.
But in that same situation, if you're an investor, there's opportunities off market if it's an investment property. So
access to more stock essentially is the
correct
is the benefit of off market.
So if you say you call a real estate agent and say, hey, listen, what investment properties have you currently got on your books that potentially would sell for $700,000, this type of product? They might have an investor that's looking to sell, and the reason they haven't gone to market is because they've got a tenancy agreement in place for the next 12 months.
Yeah, and no owner-oc's going to buy that.
No owner-oc's going to buy something with a tenancy. So if you're an investor, you can still get access to those off markets and potentially buy without competition because you're just inheriting that lease that comes with the property.
Yeah, so good point. Doesn't mean you're going to get it at a bargain price or you're going to sort of beat that, create some sort of loophole where you're off market means you're going to get it cheaper. It just means you're going to get access to better stock or more suitable stock.
Again, like, I know a lot of buyers agents, especially in Sydney, that will actually go out there and door knock and drop letters for the properties that people are interested in just to try and buy it direct to vendor.
Yeah, so no agent.
No agent. And like I said, everyone can do it themselves. If people are willing to go out there and knock on doors, most people aren't.
I was looking at the stats the other day. I think I threw it on my LinkedIn, but it was the quickest markets at the moment, and I think it was 8 out of the 10 were in Perth.
Oh,
and the average, the quickest average days on sale, one suburb was 8 days.
Yeah.
That's when an off-market property is worth a lot.
That's the thing. Like, they're the markets where people engage buyers agents to get access to more stock. And it's normally pre-markets through an agent, but it's really you're paying them to go out there and knock on doors.
Yep.
I even go to the extent now of actually putting up Facebook and Instagram ads to target certain people in that area to see if they're willing to sell.
Yeah, I think it's a effective way to do it. So I guess overall, when you are buying a property, it's not just what you think it's worth. There is other factors that do come into it. It's basically, I guess, as a recap, the comparative sales, and then how that house stacks up against those comparatives. Room sizes, natural lighting, fixtures and fittings. What else is there? Street appeal is a big one.
Yeah, and I think instead of just relying on the data that could be delayed, go out and actually see what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
What product are you buying? Go to the open homes, go to the auctions, and that will tell you how many people are out there interested, how many people are actually throwing up bid cards.
Days on market's a big one.
Vacancy rate, inventory rates are a massive one.
If something's sitting on the market for 8 days, your chances of bargaining that property is next to zero.
Yeah.
Whatever they listed at, it's going to sell for more.
Typically, like I normally say 30, but sometimes auction campaigns go a little bit longer. So if a property is moving typically in less than 35 days, it's a hot market.
For sure.
Because most people will go, all right, let's do 3 or 4 weeks worth of open homes, send it to auctions.
Yeah.
So it still could be a hot market in that property, could have sold within a week, but they wanted to do an auction campaign.
Build
so your stock or days on market is slightly increased.
Yeah, because you want to build as many interested parties as possible.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I guess recapping it again, the importance of it is so that you don't want to get a shortfall. That's the key for me is, well, from my side, a bit selfish here, but I hate having that conversation with a client. As I said, doesn't happen often, but your house that you've just bought for $1 million, the bank's valued it at $950. It's not a nice conversation to have.
Yeah.
So do your research. Really look out for what you're purchasing. Don't overspend. Don't over rely on what the real estate agent's telling you it's worth.
Yeah.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add to that before we move on?
I think we'll touch on another controversial one.
Beautiful.
I don't know if brokers are this way inclined, but I know dealing with banks in the past, of course, you've got the contract of sale price.
Yep.
And that's, a number on the front page of the contract of sale. The actual signing of that contract of sale is on page 2. So it's happened in the past where contract of sale has been filled out with the vendor's details, the vendor's solicitor, the buyer's details and the price. That contract has been sent to the bank for evaluation based on that purchase price, but that contract hasn't actually been signed physically.
To manipulate the LVRs for saving on LMI and stuff like that?
Well, to get a confirmation that they'll value it at that price instead of getting a shortfall.
Yeah, look, I don't personally sort of try and manipulate that sort of stuff, but yeah, there's definitely ways that people try and play the system there. There's a lot of, like, as you said, you can't technically do a pre-purchase valuation.
Yeah.
But you can send in a front page of a contract to a valuer.
Yeah.
So you do the maths there, but look, technically you could do that, but not a huge benefit in the current market, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's
it for this week.
That's it for this week. So yeah, again, as a bit of a recap, do your research, use some of the tools out there, but don't be too reliant on it. Although market value is usually what you're willing to pay for it, just make sure that you're not, sticking out too much. If it's a property that, where the average median price in that area is $1 million and you're buying it for $2.5 million, you need to really justify why.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the bank valuers are just going to go, no, that's worth 1.2, not 2.5.
Yeah.
Not just because it's got a nice pool and some LED lights doesn't mean it's worth that.
Yeah.
So really need to justify why you're spending more than what the median is if that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's it for today. If you need to make contact with either of us or want to see any of our other episodes, jump on our website. We have a website now, which is just talkpropertytome.com.au, and you can reach out on there.
Next week, we've got a special guest.
We do. Thank you. Bye.